He was a welder, a man of grit and steel. For over 40 hard years he'd faced the fire. Now he lived alone on his sprawling farm. After his beloved wife Maria succumbed to cancer, silence became his constant companion. Only his dog Bosley shared the quiet acres, but the quiet soon became heavy, charged. An unspoken dread began to seep into the corners of their solitary life. He was a practical man, grounded in reality, or so he thought. The farm held memories. Now it seemed to hold something else entirely, something that watched from the shadows. It began subtly. A flicker, a movement caught from the corner of his eye. Late one night he glanced up. Maria's old bedroom window, the one on the second story. It was locked. He knew it. He'd locked it himself after she passed. Yet he saw something move behind the glass. A shadow. His heart hammered against his ribs. He raced inside the silent house, up the creaking stairs. His hand trembled as he reached for the doorknob. It was still locked. He fumbled with the key, pushed the door open. The room was cold, empty, untouched, just as he had left it. Dust motes danced in the pale moonlight, but the feeling lingered. He wasn't alone. The nights grew longer after that. Sleep became a fragile thing. Bosley, usually calm, would awaken him. A low, guttural growl rumbling deep in his chest, ears pricked, staring at the ceiling. Then the welder heard it too, creaking sounds, distinct, unmistakable, like footsteps, pacing slowly, coming from the room directly above his own. Maria's unoccupied bedroom. Each creak sent a shiver down his spine. He'd grab his flashlight, his breath catching in his throat. He'd force himself to investigate, to confront the unknown, but every time the room was empty, silent. The only sound, his own ragged breathing. The fear, though, was very real. Then came the morning. The kitchen lights were on. He stood in the doorway, puzzled, confused. He was meticulous about turning everything off before bed. A lifelong habit, doors locked, switches flicked, always. Had he forgotten? Was his grief playing tricks on his mind? Doubt began to gnaw at him. This was different from the sounds, the fleeting glimpses. This was tangible, a clear sign that someone or something was invading his space, his sanctuary. He finally called the police. They came. They searched the entire property, top to bottom. They found nothing, no signs of an intruder, no logical explanation. The mystery only deepened, and so did the fear. The unsettling occurrences escalated. One day he mustered the courage to enter Maria's bedroom, a room he had mostly avoided, a shrine to his lost love. He opened the door. His breath hitched. His blood turned to ice. Her clothes, the ones he had so carefully, so painfully packed away in boxes after her death, they were scattered, thrown carelessly all over the floor as if a whirlwind had torn through the room or a malevolent hand. This wasn't just a creak or a light. This was a deliberate act, a violation of a memory, a chilling message. He felt a surge of anger, quickly overwhelmed by a profound, bone-chilling terror. He stood there, paralyzed by shock and disbelief, and then he saw her. In the doorway of Maria's desecrated room, a figure, short, indistinct, a woman. He couldn't make out her face. It was shrouded in shadow, or perhaps something else. Something not of this world. She just stood there, watching him, silent, immobile. Primal fear, cold and sharp, pierced through him. He didn't think, he reacted. He turned and bolted from the room. Fled down the stairs, his heart threatening to burst from his chest. He burst out of the house into the harsh daylight, gasping for air. When he dared to look back, the figure was gone, vanished as if she were never there. The months that followed were a living nightmare. He became a ghost in his own home. Sleep offered no escape, only more opportunities for the terror to seep in. He lived in a state of constant, heightened alert. Every shadow danced with menace. Every unexplained noise was a prelude to horror. The footsteps overhead became a nightly ritual, pacing, restless, taunting. He felt like he was being relentlessly tormented, hunted. The feeling of being watched was incessant. He was terrified. He was helpless. The farm, once his haven, had become his prison. He was no longer sure what was real and what was a figment of his terrified imagination. One evening, as dusk settled over the fields, he saw it, through the living room window, a figure standing motionless in the yard, looking directly at him. There was no mistaking it this time. This wasn't a fleeting glimpse or a trick of the light. This was a direct, chilling confrontation. He snapped. Years of welding, of facing down challenges, didn't prepare him for this. He grabbed his rifle. He fired a few warning shots into the encroaching darkness. The figure melted away. He tried to rationalize it. A drifter, a homeless person, someone mentally unstable. But deep down, the experiences felt too personal, too targeted. He was living in perpetual fear, a prisoner of an unseen, unknown tormentor. Now let's shift our focus to a different kind of fear. A fear rooted in the tangible, yet no less terrifying. A young catering service worker making his way through the lonely hours of the night. It was late, around 2 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. He decided to stop at a 24/7 McDonald's for a quick bite, a moment of normalcy in the dead of night. The bright artificial lights of the restaurant usually offered a small comfort, but not this night. This night, the air felt different, charged, an undercurrent of unease that he couldn't quite place. A silent alarm bell ringing in his gut. His eyes were drawn to a vehicle in the nearly empty parking lot, an old beat-up Volkswagen. Its windows were heavily tinted, obscuring whoever or whatever was inside. It was backed into a shadowy corner, engine idling, a low guttural hum in the otherwise still night. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. This McDonald's was situated near a large nature preserve and a scenic lookout point. Both were closed at this ungodly hour, deserted. So, why was this car here, lurking, waiting? The scene felt staged, predatory. He felt a prickle of genuine danger. He called his friend, Sebastian, maybe for reassurance, maybe because an unspoken instinct told him he might need help. They decided to skip the McDonald's, to find somewhere else to eat their late-night meal. They chose the nearby scenic lookout point, a place they knew from their high school days, a spot that held memories of youthful innocence. They hoped for a moment of peace. They drove off, unaware, oblivious. The suspicious Volkswagen pulled out of the McDonald's lot and began to follow them, a dark shadow clinging to their rearview mirror. The feeling of unease intensified. It twisted into a knot of undeniable dread. They arrived at the lookout. It was pitch black, eerily silent, the kind of silence that amplifies every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig. As the narrator and Sebastian got out of their car, their own car doors slamming shut with an unnatural loudness, figures emerged from the Volkswagen, which had quietly pulled in behind them. 4 men. They started walking towards them, a slow, deliberate advance. There was no talking between the men, just a silent, coordinated movement. Their intentions felt cold, calculated, hostile. The catering worker and his friend suddenly felt exposed, vulnerable. The night air, once still, now crackled with an unspoken threat. One of the men detached himself from the group. He moved closer. He was covered in tattoos. A nose ring glinted in the faint ambient light. He tried to act friendly, overly friendly. He asked for a lighter. The narrator and Sebastian were sharing a blunt, a small moment of normalcy. Now it felt like a trap. The man's eyes, they were cold, lifeless, like a shark's. The catering worker felt a deep chill. This casual approach was a performance, a carefully constructed facade. And they were the unwilling audience to a play that felt increasingly dangerous. He knew this was not a random encounter. The narrator, trying to gauge the situation, asked a question. He pointed to another man in the group. What's that guy holding? The words hung heavy in the tense air. Instantly, the tattooed man's demeanor shifted. The friendly mask shattered, his smile vanished, replaced by a chillingly blank expression. His eyes narrowed into slits. The atmosphere turned palpably hostile. It was then the narrator noticed something else, a detail that sent a fresh wave of alarm through him. Under the tattooed man's hoodie, he could see it, the distinctive fabric, the colors, a McDonald's uniform. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't random, this was targeted. Suddenly, Sebastian shouted, "A warning! Look out!" He pointed towards the trees at the edge of the lookout. A 4th associate, partially hidden in the dense foliage. Watching them, they were outnumbered, potentially ambushed. Raw panic ignited. Their survival instinct screamed, "Run!" They turned and fled, scrambling back towards their car. Adrenaline coursed through their veins. 3 of the men gave chase, their heavy footsteps pounding on the asphalt behind them. Getting closer, closer. They fumbled with the car doors, jumped in. The engine roared to life. Tires screeched as they sped away, escaping into the darkness, hearts pounding, minds reeling. They had narrowly avoided something terrible. The narrator, thinking fast during the encounter, had discreetly taken a photo, a picture of the McDonald's employee, the apparent ringleader. Later, he showed this photo to another, younger McDonald's worker. Recognition flickered in their eyes. The man in the photo was the ex-boyfriend of a female employee. He had been harassing her, stalking her for months. She had a restraining order against him, but he was clearly violating it. Camping out at the McDonald's, waiting, unhinged. The welder, haunted by an unseen presence in his isolated farmhouse. This catering worker, hunted by a very real, very human threat, different circumstances. Yet the same paralyzing fear, the same feeling of helplessness. These events leave scars, unseen, unexplained. They force us to confront the darkness that can lurk just beyond our perception, in old houses, or in the twisted intentions of another human being. What truly hides in the shadows of our world? We may never have all the answers,